welcome to our second GrandPod podcast, hosted by me, Heather Young, COO for GrandirUK, and your podcast host. Today we are discussing our commitment to providing outstanding education and care each and every day for our children and families. But what does that really mean? Joining me today are two very special guests, Sara Coffey and Jayne Harker. Welcome to our second GrandPod of our GrandPod series at GrandirUK. I'm joined today by Sara and Jayne, our very special guests who are here to help us talk about our commitment to be outstanding and outstanding practice. So Sara, did you want to just introduce yourself and your role?
I will. It's great to be here, so thank you for inviting me, Heather. So my name is Sara Coffey. I'm the Director of Early Years Regulation and Compliance here at GrandirUK. And my team are here to really support the nurseries every day in that sort of day-to-day practice of delivering really good and outstanding every day for every child in every nursery. So that's part and parcel of my role.
Thank you. And Jayne?
Hi everybody, thank you for inviting me, Heather. Privileged to be here. So my role is I'm a Nursery Manager at Ruddington Day Nursery, and I'm also your early years specialist working for Grandir, and I travel around a lot of the different nurseries in my region and out of my region, helping nurseries to achieve good and outstanding grades and in their practice too.
Excellent. And you're going to share a wonderful example of that with us shortly, aren't you?
I am.
You are, which would be great. So Sara and Jayne are here to talk, as I said, about outstanding practice with us. So Sara, you obviously lead our early years and regulation and compliance scene at GrandirUK, but also support the operations and the teams out there to drive our practice forward. What do your team do and how do they support that outstanding here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the team are there in so many different facets. So we've got our quality and regulatory assessment process with which our teams sort of lean into and visit nurseries and complete those assessments. So we have two team members, both Craig and Bajinder, who deliver that role for us in our compliance specialist role. We also have Sarah Jayne, who sits with our safeguarding specialist role, so really aids us to support that safeguarding specialism within the business, supporting nursery managers. As we know, lots of different elements of safeguarding need that level of support, and Sarah Jayne's there to step in and really help and aid next steps when we need to with families and our children that we serve every day. And also Caroline Chandler, who is our health and safety manager, and Caroline supports everything that sits in that health and safety space. I think Caroline has an amazing rapport with the nursery. She works really hard to bring health and safety to everybody in the setting. She makes it fun, exciting, really engages the team in everything that she does. So that's the team really. We also have a new addition. So Maria sits as our catering specialist. So really excited that we are working really hard this year and beyond to deliver amazing environments for our children in relation to their food and the different aspects that sit with our CSR objectives. So really bringing forward into every single nursery menus, consistency, and really taking the time to understand all of the dietary requirements and things that our children need every single day. So that's the team. Okay. As Jayne mentioned, we partner really closely with our early years specialists, so they are absolutely fundamental in everything we do. They're out there in the nurseries, role modelling good practice, really supporting the nursery teams on the ground. So again, that we can bring nurseries from that level of good to outstanding through the support that they deliver every day in their roles.
And how do you, because obviously as the early years director in our business, that we've got a lot of nurseries, so there's a lot to oversee and a lot to make sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing, both within our early years foundation stage framework to ensure that we're embedding good practice and that we're compliant, but also in terms of driving that outstanding ambition or our outstanding commitment, because we want children and families to experience amazing things when they come through our door, and we all know that we are very privileged to look after these children, so therefore we want to give them the best every day. So how do you, in your role, Sara, or with your team, how do you do that? Because that's a lot, isn't it, to be able to be aware of what's going on out there and what practice is happening and driving that commitment that we always want to drive to deliver that practice?
I think you never deliver that alone. So I think that we're hugely fortunate that we work alongside really passionate, very engaged leaders at all levels. And I think that in terms of our structure and the support structure around that really drives that excellence, I think that's influenced from myself, but every single leader in the business. So we'll have our regional managers that will go in and support. They support their nursery managers, the nursery managers support their teams. So I think that influence in terms of really driving quality standards, it's from the top down, from the bottom up, and I think we do that in partnership. So it's never one person. I think we learn with and from each other, and I think everybody that you'll meet within GrandirUK is completely committed to that commitment of outstanding practice and childcare every day. So I think that's how we achieve it. We achieve it collectively.
Absolutely.
What is it? What do you think it is? Because I think sometimes it's quite subjective, isn't it? I always, when I visit nurseries, whether they're in GrandirUK or whether other nurseries out there in the sector, I always feel there's a feeling when you walk through the door, and I think a lot of it is down to the leadership and management and how our leadership and management runs a nursery. But for me, when I walk in, I get a feeling that there was just every child is engaged, every practitioner is engaged with that child. There are really great interactions going on. There were great environments created. There's so much to it, but it's not an easy thing to get an outstanding judgment. We know that's not easy. We know predominantly we see a lot of good outcomes, and we celebrate those that we see outstanding, and we do see outstanding outcomes. What is it? What does it feel to you when you walk in the nursery?
I think, and it's really interesting because even some of the language that we recognise we receive in those inspection reports where we've achieved those judgments, I think the language that's often used is ambitious. So I think that leaders at all levels are ambitious for what they want that nursery to deliver every day, what their children are going to be exposed to and supported with. So I think definitely the word ambition and being ambitious and setting high standards, I think you definitely see that, and I think you see that in every walk of connection that you have in a nursery. I think everybody understands the part that they play to deliver that outstanding element. So I definitely think ambition. Jayne, what would you say in terms of your
I totally agree with you. I think you also have to have that your shared vision for the nursery. You've got to have your shared pedagogy. You've got to understand what your nursery teaching styles are. You've got to know your children instinctively inside and outside as well. So you have to also ensure that everybody is working towards the same goal and that you've got future goals continuously. So we always make sure that we're not just staying at one place, we're moving to and striving to go forward all the time.
Absolutely. I think that self-evaluation, that self-reflection, I think you're right, Jayne, in terms of, and look, Ruddington achieved 4 consecutive outstandings, and that can only be achieved when the team understand we don't stand still and we move to whatever the needs of the children are, and that can be quite transformational, can't it? So I think they're really open to change. I think they're very open to self-reflection. I think we definitely see those elements as part of our outstanding proposition and nurseries that we support every day.
Yeah, exactly. So Jayne, you've recently been supporting at Ruddington, so obviously you're one of our very special early years specialists and support many nurseries and have been out to support many nurseries to drive our outstanding commitment. But more recently you have been supporting our Ruddington nursery to cover maternity leave, and just so happened to have an inspection in the middle of that a few weeks ago. Well, congratulations on the outstanding outcome. But I think certainly for some of our leaders that are listening to this podcast that have inspections due, how did you lead that? What was that experience of leading an outstanding inspection in today's world like?
I think I did this inspection a little bit differently to ones that I've done before. So instead of letting the Ofsted inspector tell me what they were going to do, I kind of led the inspection from the point of a learning walk. So the inspector told me what he wanted to see. He didn't really give me any time frames because I said, can we just let this day unfold as it goes along? Because I knew we were extremely busy. I explained we'd got a lot of new children starting as well. So what we did was we focused first and foremost on our curriculum and pedagogy. From the learning walk, we looked at the teaching, and as we went round, the pedagogy just unfolded before his eyes. So what we were able to do, instead of going back to do joint observations on staff, we hit it in the moment. So he was asking me how we were developing communication and language. So I showed him all the different elements and aspects of the nursery that we'd worked towards to develop that, because we've worked very hard on that. Yeah. And then as he walked into one room, the whole staff team were doing the story of the tiger that came to tea. Yeah. So instead of going back and observing it, we observed it in the moment, which I asked him, I said, would it be okay if we observed this practice in the moment, because my staff were relaxed, the children were all engaged, the staff were asking the children questions, because we hit that in the moment where the children were so interested and so enthralled with everything that was going on. He got the true vision of what it's like, rather than having to go back and watch an activity where then staff can feel quite intimidated and worried, and it may be that the children aren't as engaged.
As a manager of a setting, it can be quite daunting, as we know, when we know an inspection is coming, just because we care and we want to do the very best that we can. Did you find with your inspector that he was really open to you leading it? Did you feel intimidated by him trying to lead that inspection? Because I think leading the inspection is what an inspector would expect a nursery manager to do. But I also recognise that sometimes for nursery managers, they think, oh, they're in charge here today, which they're not. So how did you plan to do that, or did that just naturally happen?
It just naturally happened. I didn't really plan it at all. I think the Ofsted inspector was very open to any suggestions that I had, and the questions that he was asking me going round the nursery when I saw something happening, such as he was asking me how we develop critical thinking, and then I look over to the forest school and I see lots of children working with pipes and tubing and rolling balls down things and trapping them and seeing how far they could make the ball go, measuring it with tape measures. That was a critical thinking there. So then to drive him over to that area with me to come and watch that, he saw it yet again in the moment. So you know your children and you know your staff teams. I think whatever makes your staff teams comfortable to bring out the best in them, we work as we do on an Ofsted inspection every single day.
Of course, and that's your difference.
And that is a difference. You need to be just operating as you normally do.
Do you think so? Coming away from Ofsted, because you make a really good point, you're just doing what you do every day, which is true outstanding practice rather than an inspection that went well, right? Because let's be honest, that can sometimes happen. So if you truly delivering outstanding every day, which is what we want, which is what our children and our families expect, how do you prepare your team? What do you do as a manager to get your nursery genuinely with embedded outstanding practice every day?
You can't sit in an office as an office manager. You have to be on the ground floor. Very rarely do I work in the office. When I'm in the rooms all day, every day, I can make sure that the staff are following the same pedagogy, that they've got the same visions, the same values, that every single person knows their key children really well, and the families and the parents inside out, back to front, as I've said before. And the biggest thing I feel is having secure attachments with the children. I say to my staff, it doesn't matter how long you have to walk around with a young child or a baby in your arms for them to stop crying, to make sure that they feel attached, because they will not learn or feel happy and confident in their environment if you don't develop those secure attachments. And the Ofsted inspector picked up on that, because he could see that all my children were so happy and so attached to the staff. There was very rarely any crying. And that's what we get when a lot of people visit the setting, that the children are so secure and are so happy to learn. It's a very calm environment.
That's a fundamentally human instinctive thing, isn't it? None of us, whether you're a baby in a practitioner's arms or whether you're working with our support teams, if you don't feel secure and trust in a trusting environment, nobody learns. So I agree with you. I think that's fundamental. We introduced a couple of years ago the me model, and the purpose of the me model, which is around the children and what the children expect and what the children deserve, and they're helping our practitioners think about what is a child wanting to experience every day from their team members, from their key people when they come into nursery. And that attachment is central to the me model. Ensuring that those things happen. Sarah, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the other thing, having visited Ruddington and just seen the practice in person, I think the other thing that they do particularly well, we talk about children's interests, but they take it beyond that. They follow those children's lines of inquiry. So you might see Charlie climbing under a table, or in another setting, I might see a practitioner say, oh, come out of there, Charlie, don't come under the table. in this setting, which is outstanding and exemplary, you would see that practitioner completely align with Charlie and say, oh, Charlie, what's it like to be under there? Does it feel a bit dark? Would you like to make a den? What would we need to make that den? What should we go and get? So I think it's that ability. We talk about teachable moments in the moment, but it's having a team that have the skill set to understand that child's interest and line of inquiry, to follow that fully, for those children to feel really confident and comfortable with what's happening in their day to day. And I think your team deliver that extremely well, and it is a joy to watch from a practitioner to practitioner interaction. It's a joy to watch. So I think that's definitely an area that I really think sets you from that good to outstanding, exceptional element with our staff.
Yeah. When I think about training, obviously training is fundamental for our staff in order to deliver outstanding practice to our children every day. I saw something, I think it was a few days ago on LinkedIn, where it had a picture of the child with, I think it building blocks or something, and the caption said, I'm building blocks, but actually I'm not. I'm learning hand-eye coordination, problem solving.
Yeah.
It's how do we help with training to move people around thinking about what are the children actually learning, not what are they doing, but what are they learning through what they're doing.
Yeah.
How much time, Jayne, do you spend, or do your staff spend, constantly updating their practice, their knowledge, how they interact with the children? Because there is an art to interaction.
there
with
is,
children,
definitely.
as you just explained. How much time do you spend, or do your team spend training?
We spend a lot of time, and like we were saying before, we do everything in the moment. When we see teachable moments, or I see a teachable moment that I think one of my younger staff hasn't recognised. My older staff are very experienced, but some of my apprentices just still need that little bit of hands-on. We model it, and then as we're talking about it, we'll go through which part of the EYFS is this hitting, as you were saying, Heather. So they totally understand that. During staff meetings as well, we do a lot of practical activities, so it's hands-on. We have a lot of information evenings for parents. We have stay and play sessions. So not only are we then explaining it to the practitioners, we're also explaining it to parents. So practitioners are constantly in that whole cycle of explaining, maybe to other practitioners, to people that come into the setting to visit. We work with a lot of other settings as well that come in to see our practice. It's just constant training, and I run training sessions as well for the staff. We look very closely at children's schemas of play as well, which that's really important.
Schemas are fascinating. We don't
Absolutely.
see enough about it, to be honest.
We don't. And you can watch a room of 2-year-olds and they're moving things from one place to another, and the staff say, hold on a minute, don't take that sand from the sandpit and put it in the home corner. But actually,
Mental to their development.
let's delve into that. What are they actually doing? They're cooking, they've learnt to transport it. How are they doing it? Are they transporting in a basket that's got holes in it and it's all spilt? And then they change their line of inquiry to something else, problem solving.
Absolutely. I also think the team have that ability to, and Caroline would be definitely pleased of me sharing this, but to dynamically risk assess.
Yeah.
I would very rarely see practitioners minimise a child's ability to do something because of there's a concern around safety. I think your practitioners always would have that sort of vision and understanding of how come safely. It's never a no, we can't have the rope swing, or no, we can't have a certain element of equipment or something that's quite different. I think that the team are always looking at how can we deliver that safely. If that child wants to climb the tree or wants to go on a rope swing, how can we make sure that they have the skills to assess the risk themselves, that they are coached from afar. I've heard your team say, oh Charlie, if you were to step on that now, what do you think might happen? And they're getting the children to think through their next steps. And I think that's key as well. How do we continue to enable children to make choices and to understand that safety and how to keep them safe and how to keep others safe? And I think your team constantly communicate that as part and parcel of their really rich environment, which, as you've already mentioned, Jayne, spans from internal continuous provision to forest school to some really dynamic learning environments that they have access to, which are incredible.
We've talked about the importance of leadership and management, and we've talked about pedagogy and teachable moments, and we've talked about dynamic risk assessment and the training of the staff. How important do you think the families are in us driving our outstanding practice? Because obviously our role is to support the family as much as it is the child. And I think over the years it's become more and more important to involve the family. When I first started as a nursery practitioner many moons ago, the input of the family wasn't quite as key as it is today, particularly we have more and more challenges for families out there and they're looking for more and more support. So how important is the role of the family, the rest of the family, the parents and the carers in our outstanding care?
I think it's integral to everything we do, because at the end of the day, the parents are the child's main role model. And I think exactly what you're saying, Heather, cultural capital changes with different cohorts of children and life gets very busy. So you say we've done a big drive on communication language and having a lending library because we feel that parents just don't have time really now in this busy society some days to sit and read books with their children. And we want children to actually hold a book, look at it, feel it, because a lot of things are done on an iPad now. We look at the books that we've got in the nursery and then we can find the right stories that the children like, and then we can put them in the lending library. Then the parents can take them home and read them because they might not actually have the funds at home to buy them. And then looking at cultural capital of different children, as we've already said, to bridge those gaps then.
I think also that the knowledge of the parents are the knowledge of a parent, and I think even in your report, Jayne, it spells out the fact that your families absolutely recognise the professionalism of your team and seek their advice and their counsel and their opinions and their support, and that came out clearly not only within the report but as part of the conversations that the inspector had with your families. I think they absolutely see your nursery, your team, your professionals as that point of contact when they need it. And I think you immerse yourself within the community, and the community where the nursery is based and where our families live and work. You've really worked hard to immerse yourself within that community. And I think that makes a difference, because all agencies, so whether that's your health visitor, your GP, your dentist, I think you've got that real community feel that has been fostered over numerous years, and that then becomes part of nursery life. And so your nursery life becomes even broader than your nursery four walls, because the children have exposures to so many things in the community.
Yeah, they do.
There's so much to it, isn't there?
I know.
It's amazing. We've got a number of nurseries out there that are driving outstanding practice and really committed to trying to deliver that every day. Some of those are due inspection, some of those aren't, but obviously if they're due inspection, they are wanting to secure their outstanding outcomes. What advice would each of you give to those nurseries that are due inspection in particular, or those nursery managers and those nursery practitioners out there? What advice would you give to them in order to strive for the outstanding outcome?
I think to make sure that all your staff team, leaders, your staff, your apprentices all have the same shared vision, and you all know where you're going to, what your future goals are, that you've looked at your nursery development plan, you've seen where gaps are, and you are confident in telling an Ofsted inspector that, because none of us are perfect. We had bits that we're working on still at Ruddington, which we explained to the Ofsted inspector as well. So it's just that part of ensuring that everybody's got the same shared goal.
I think that's really important what you just said, Jayne, because I think there is a perception that Ofsted come in and expect perfection. I don't think they do. I think what they want to know from a leadership and management perspective is you identify where those challenges are, and that you articulate them before they do, and that they know that you have a plan in place, or that you're moving that forward, because we work with children, we work with human beings, things aren't perfect every day. But I think that if you're, from a leadership and management perspective, if you're able to take control of that situation and share that with an inspector and be really authentic and genuine about where you're at, I think that counts for a lot in terms of building confidence and credibility and leadership that can be the difference sometimes between that good and outstanding practice. What about you, Sara? What advice would you give to the nurseries out there?
I really think it is, and I know Jayne touched on it earlier, but I think it is about definitely articulating all of the information that you really know about the children that you care for every day, because everybody who has had that opportunity to touch the life of that child will know a certain element about them. But I think that you, as their key person, would know real intimate, important details about that child. And I think it is about sharing that, and it's about articulating that really well. And I think that Ofsted have recognised they're not looking for a paper trail, they're looking for some real insightful information from teams who can communicate that really well, very credibly, to be able to demonstrate their knowledge of their children. I also think it's about understanding and recognising if we're not quite meeting where we need to be. So if a child's not meeting a milestone or not quite meeting that element we would expect, it's team members being able to respond quickly to that. The same with leadership. Jayne leads a busy team, a wide team, and there will be occasions where something isn't quite where we would expect it to be, but it's that leadership response to reacting to that swiftly and managing that in the moment. And I think that all of these things make the tapestry of nursery life. So I think how much you can really support that in sharing the tapestry of nursery life with the inspector is really important.
There's so many hats, aren't there? I remember managing many years ago, and I think I was everything from counsellor to cook to nursery practitioner to administrator to there were just so many hats to wear. It's a very skilled job to oversee all that and drive your outstanding practice and look after your family's expectations. So it's huge. I don't think we should ever underestimate how big it is, and hopefully just by listening to some of the discussion that we're having today, hopefully that will help some of our teams out there just to understand that we all know that it's not easy. We all know that there are things that we need to do and things that we need to demonstrate in order to drive that practice forward. But things go wrong, and it's not a perfect world that we live in, and therefore it shouldn't be perfect in nursery either. It's not realistic. But no, interesting discussion. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys coming in and chatting about Outstanding. We do have, just for information, we know that Ofsted are just going into consultation for changing the way that they inspect certainly their outcomes. So I understand that at the moment they're looking at moving towards single judgments for potentially 8 different areas, and changing the terminology of our current inspection outcomes. So without going into too much detail, because it's still in consultation phase, what would be really great maybe in 3-4 months time, when we know what's going to change, if we could come back together and talk a little bit about the impact of that, because certainly for our nursery managers and our nursery leadership out there, it might be helpful for us to do something for them to understand those changes and how we can support to still deliver those quality outcomes under more areas of potential inspection. I actually don't think the gradings are that different, they're just different wordings, and then we have some wording around exemplary practice, which I think is a panel-led decision. But I think having 8 areas to be inspected against and not have one judgment outcome is very different for our sector. So certainly some work that we will need to do to support with that. But that's a future episode. Good, thank you very much. We will close that off for today, and we will look forward to episode 3 whenever that's going to be.